This story is based on the true events of October 5, 1944. It takes place near the Dutch village of Randwijk, on a stretch of land between the Lower Rhine and the Wall River. The battle would become known within Easy Company as the Crossroads. The account you are about to hear is rooted in multiple historical sources. Chief among them is Beyond Band of Brothers, the personal memoir of Major Dick Winters, the man who led the assault. Additional details come from Band of Brothers by Stephen E. Ambrose, though this version prioritizes Winters' first-hand account when the two differ. The battlefield reconstruction by historian Joris Nieuwint provided clarity on terrain, movement, and unit positions. First-person reflections from David Webster and official unit histories of the 101st Airborne also helped shape the timeline. Every effort has been made to keep this retelling faithful to the facts. Dramatic pacing and dialogue have been added for clarity and immersion, but not at the expense of truth. The names, locations, and key actions are real, and it begins in silence, just before dawn, in the cold mist of Holland. It was 3:30 in the morning on October 5, 1944. The night was cold, silent, and wet with fog that clung to the dikes along the Rhine River. Easy Company was stretched thin, holding a sector between the Dutch villages of Randwijk and Heteren. From their foxholes, the men waited in the dark, alert but exhausted. No one knew what the enemy had planned, but Captain Dick Winters had a feeling something was coming. As a result of being stretched so thin, he sent out patrols to inform him of what was happening. Sergeant Art Human led the patrol. With him were Jim Alley, Joris Nieuwint, and Roderick Stroll. Their orders were clear: observe enemy activity across the river from an outpost on the south bank of the Rhine. They slipped into the dark, their boots sinking into damp sandy ground. As they reached the dike that would lead them to the river, Human ordered Lesniewski to climb up and take a look. Joe moved slowly, carefully, belly crawling to the crest. At the top, barely outlined against the foggy sky, he saw it, a German machine gun nest. A soldier stood behind it, arm cocked, ready to throw a grenade. Lesniewski dropped instantly, shouting a warning as grenades rained down on the patrol. The explosions lit the night in flashes, shrapnel ripped through them. Jim Alley was torn up the worst, 32 wounds on the left side of his face, neck, and arm. Stroll's radio was shredded by steel. The patrol could not call back. They had no choice but to run. Bleeding and breathless, they staggered back to Easy Company's command post. It was 4:20 when they burst in, bloodied and gasping. Winters took one look and understood. The Germans were across the Rhine and inside Easy Company's sector. Stroll reported seeing enemy movement at the Crossroads about 3/4 of a mile east. He said there were a lot of them, maybe a full company, and they were dug in with a machine gun. Worse, the Germans were firing down a road that led to nothing but open country. No Americans were out there. Winters found that strange. Why waste ammo unless it was a diversion? Maybe something bigger was about to go down somewhere else. He did not hesitate. Winters grabbed Sergeant Leo Boyle and a radio, then called for a squad from 1st Platoon. They were going out to see for themselves. They moved fast. The patrol hugged the dike, careful to stay out of sight. The German machine gun still fired bursts to the south, tracers streaking harmlessly over empty fields. Winters stopped and tried to contact the forward observer. He wanted artillery, but the radio was silent, no answer, so he went himself. He crawled alone, pulling himself over the top of the dike. On the far side, he found what he needed, a drainage ditch that ran along the dike, 2 feet deep. It offered cover. He slid back down, gave orders, and took the squad over the dike, dropping into the ditch. They moved slowly, inching toward the Crossroads. At 250 yards from the target, Winters halted the men and crawled the rest of the way alone. At the culvert beneath the road, he stopped. He saw them, 7 German soldiers silhouetted against the dawn. They stood by the machine gun, chatting casually, rifles slung, their breath visible in the morning chill. They were unaware that death lay just beyond the ditch. Winters returned quietly and whispered his orders. They moved up. Winters pointed out targets, assigning each man a German to shoot. A machine gun was set up behind them. Winters stepped back, raised his voice just enough to carry. Ready, aim, fire! A volley rang out. 4 Germans dropped immediately. The others ran. Easy Company's men opened up again. Every one of them was killed. The attack had worked, but the fight was far from over. The Germans were here, and they weren't going anywhere. The fog lifted slowly, revealing damp fields and twisted hedgerows. Captain Dick Winters crouched low in the ditch with his men. They had just eliminated a German machine gun crew at the Crossroads, but the quiet did not last. Rifle fire cracked from the east and bullets skipped across the ground. Winters pulled the patrol back to a deeper ditch running perpendicular to the dike. It gave them some cover, but barely. They were exposed. Their numbers were small. And now, the enemy was reacting. Winters radioed back to headquarters. "Lieutenant Welsh," he said, "send the rest of 1st Platoon. Tell Lieutenant Race to bring the light machine guns." Then came the first loss. Sergeant Dukeman stood to reposition his squad. They were bunched too close. One mortar shell could take them all. He waved his arm, calling out, "Spread out, get some separation." At that moment, a German rifle grenade arced from the culvert near the road. It whistled through the air and struck. Dukeman let out a sigh and dropped to his knees. Then he slumped forward. Winters turned. "Duke's down!" someone shouted. He was already dead. In an instant the patrol opened fire. Bullets tore through the culvert. The Germans who fired the grenade were killed. But the silence that followed was heavier than the gunfire. Dukeman was gone, a man everyone respected. Winters knelt in the ditch, scanning the terrain. Fog clung low to the fields, but it was thinning. The sun was coming. Soon they would be fully exposed. He needed a plan. He stood and walked into the open, stepping out 50 yards ahead of his men. His boots sank slightly into wet soil. He stopped. The quiet was eerie, the moment clear. He took it all in. The Germans had solid cover behind the road embankment. Easy Company was pinned in a shallow ditch with no room to maneuver. To the right, the enemy could slip along the dike's southern edge, flank them, and wipe them out. Worse still, there was nothing between this German force and the 2nd Battalion headquarters in Hemmen, 3.5 miles south. Winters clenched his jaw. Retreat would leave a hole in the American line. Staying put meant potentially being slaughtered. His men were outnumbered, outgunned, and his in a bad position. There was only one choice. He would attack. Winters jogged back to the ditch and called a quick conference. Lieutenant Peacock, Staff Sergeant Talbert, and Lieutenant Reese huddled close. "Talbert, take 3rd Squad and swing out far to the right. Peacock, you take 1st Squad and move left. I'll lead 2nd Squad straight up the middle. Lieutenant Rice, get your light machine guns placed between the columns to provide covering fire. When you see the smoke signal, open up. Keep the enemy's heads down. Once we hit the road, shift your fire and move up to join us." He paused. "Fix bayonets." The words were almost never said in modern war, but there they were, plain and final. Hubler, standing close, swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed visibly. Winters looked each man in the eye. "Once that smoke goes up," he said, "we charge, fast and hard. We don't stop until we reach that road. Hang tough." There was no time for fear, only action. The men had a clear plan, and Winters would lead the way. Smoke flared, machine guns barked. 3 assault columns surged into the open, charging across 200 yards of flat, open field. No trees, no rocks, no protection. Winters ran fast, outpacing everyone. He had made his decision. He had accepted the risk. And now, with bayonet fixed and rifle in hand, he ran headfirst into hell, because there was no other way to keep his men alive. No way out but forward. Captain Dick Winters ran like a man possessed. His boots pounded across the open Dutch field. He leapt over hidden strands of wire, stumbled once, then pushed harder. Behind him, the assault column struggled to keep up. Talbert on the right, Peacock on the left, Winters dead center, alone in front. The road came into view. A small rise marked where the field met the embankment. Winters did not slow. He lunged up the slope, rifle raised, breath burning in his lungs. He crested the road and stopped cold. 10 feet in front of him, a German sentry crouched, shielding his head from the American machine gun fire. The man had no idea Winters was there. Then Winters looked right and saw them. A company of German infantry, more than 100 men, packed tightly at the base of the dike. They were lying in a heap, trying to duck the incoming fire. Long coats, full packs, steel helmets, their rifles pointed away from him, toward the south. They had no idea. Winters' heart pounded. For a second, time slowed. His senses sharpened. He could see the fabric folds in the German coats, the sweat on the sentry's neck, the steam rising from their breath in the morning chill. Winters acted first. He dropped back down to his side of the road, yanked the pin from a grenade and hurled it. At the same moment, the German sentry lobbed one too. Neither grenade exploded. Winters had forgotten to remove the safety tape from his own. The Germans just failed. Winters leapt back up. He fired from the hip, one shot, point blank into the sentry's chest. The man dropped instantly. The German soldiers began to turn, but they were sluggish, weighed down by gear and shock. They were trapped in the open, disoriented, trying to figure out where the fire was coming from. Winters did not wait. He turned right and fired his M1 Garand into the mass of bodies. 8 rounds, ejected clip, reload, 8 more. Winters later recalled a feeling that everything was happening in slow motion. It wasn't, but his training, adrenaline, and cortisol were all doing their job at that moment when war did not make a man great, but it did bring out greatness in a good man. The Germans panicked. Some tried to return fire. Others ran. The line collapsed. Still alone, Winters dropped behind the road, slammed in a 3rd clip, popped up, and fired again. By then, Talbert's and Peacock's men reached the road. Winters shouted, "Fire at will." Talbert's men had a clear shot at the German flank. It became a slaughter. The enemy fled in every direction, tangled in their coats, tripping over themselves. Then another wave arrived. A 2nd German company crossed the dike 100 yards away. Now they ran straight into the chaos, trying to get back to the ferry in safety. Peacock's men joined the fight. Machine guns barked from the American side. The newcomers were caught in a hailstorm. It was a rout. Men screamed. Some dropped their rifles and ran. Others were shot in the back as they fled toward the river. Thick fog had given way to clear daylight. There was nowhere to hide. Winters called in artillery. Shells began to fall, hammering the retreating troops. Amid the madness, Private David Webster spotted Germans hiding in tall weeds. He called for them to surrender. One by one, 11 men stood and raised their hands. Some wore the double lightning bolts of the SS they claimed to be Polish. Webster did not believe them. He sent them to the rear. Then, rifle in hand, he returned to the front, eager to get back in the fight. The enemy was broken, but the job was not done. Winters set his eyes on the river and gave the next order. Captain Winters stared toward the Rhine. The factory buildings loomed on the far bank, gray and silent. Smoke drifted low over the fields. Bodies lay scattered near the dike. The Germans were in full retreat, but Winters was not finished. He wanted to push forward. The fight at the Crossroads had shattered 2 German companies. Dozens were dead. 11 had surrendered. But Winters knew the enemy still held ground near the river, and he had no intention of letting them regroup. He radioed headquarters. "I need reinforcements. Send a platoon from Fox Company." The answer came quickly. Fox Company was on the way. As Winters waited, he reorganized what was left of 1st Platoon. Ammunition was checked. Positions were shifted. Every man knew the plan. Advance to the river using fire and movement. When the Fox Company platoon arrived, Winters briefed them fast. "We'll move in bounds. One group lays down fire, the other moves up 100 yards. Then we switch. We keep doing that until we reach the factory." And so they began. The advance was slow, deliberate, and disciplined. Across 600 yards of flat, open ground, Easy Company and Fox Company leapfrogged toward the enemy. Each movement was covered by machine guns and rifles. No shouting, no panic, just cool precision from one of the best infantry units in the U.S. Army. They reached the edge of the factory, and then the trap sprang shut. From the right rear, 75 German soldiers opened fire. Bullets tore through the air. The Americans hit the dirt. Winters assessed instantly. He could not fight forward and rear at the same time. He made the call, pull back, live to fight another day. Using the same leapfrog tactic, the companies withdrew. As the final group crossed over the dike near the Crossroads, a storm of mortars fell. It was devastating. The Germans had zeroed in on the exact position. Shell after shell exploded with horrifying accuracy. 18 men were hit, all wounded. Sergeant Leo Boyle, Winters' trusted right hand that day, was among them. Medics raced in. The wounded were carried back. Ambulances rolled down the muddy roads, engines grinding, tires slick with blood and rain. Winters stood at the edge of the field, his face expressionless. The attack had ended. Easy Company had killed or routed more than 100 German soldiers. They had taken 11 prisoners. The German advance had been stopped cold. And the Crossroads, strategically vital just north of Randwijk, remained in American hands. Winters ordered defensive positions set up. Strong points were built. The road would be held. As the sun dipped low and the wounded were evacuated, Winters sat alone for a moment. He had made the hard calls, sent men into open fields, pulled the trigger first, watched good friends fall. There had been no time for hesitation, and because of that the line had held. In the days to come, others would speak of the battle at the Crossroads with awe. They would say it was a textbook example of leadership under fire. But for Winters it was simple. He had done what had to be done, and now he would prepare to do it again. Because war did not care about medals or speeches or even who was right. It only cared who was still standing when the smoke cleared.